Welcome to the Big Change the Film interview series, and my name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and every week I chat with inspiring individuals who've also lost significant amounts of weight and hear their stories. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is now up to 10,555 pounds. This week's guest is Karen Hauserman. Karen told me that for all of her life she was overweight or obese, and she even remembers when she was a kid being teased by all the other kids. She says that as she got into adulthood, she decided to focus on her career and also raising 3 kids instead of her health. In late 2010, Karen had a heart attack, which she tells me about, and she also said that she realized when she took into account her weight and her current health, she was a ticking time bomb. In January 2011, she decided that she was going to have a fresh start, take back her health, and she's done just that over the last several years. She's lost 268 pounds. She told me that she feels like she's reversed the aging process and she feels better than ever. We have a fantastic conversation about her amazing journey, and thanks so much for watching. I'm here with Karen Hauserman. I found her story through Forks Over Knives, and she has lost a tremendous amount of weight. So first off, Karen, thanks for taking the time and chat with me, and maybe we could just start off with where you live and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason, for the interview. Well, I live in Michigan. It's very cold here right now, but it's been quite a journey for me. I lost 268 pounds, and it took me about a couple years to do so. So, yeah,
Well, congratulations.
thank you.
So, I read your story on Forks Over Knives, but maybe for somebody who isn't familiar, could we start off with, going back to childhood, earlier in life? Were you bigger as a kid? Is your weight something that came on later in life? How did that kind of develop for you?
Oh gosh, no, I was heavy as a child, as a small child, and I was heavy all the way through adolescence. And once I got into my senior year in high school, I had dropped some weight, and but then it ballooned up again soon after, and so it kind of went through this yo-yo phase in my early 20s till I got married. Right before I got married, I lost some weight, and I was at a reasonable weight, I guess you could say, about 170, 165, 170, and I got married, I got pregnant, and it all spiraled out of control again. And only this time it got much worse. And, I gained 100 pounds after my first child. I gained another 100 pounds after my second child. And I kind of got settled into this lifestyle that, oh, I was married. I had children. It's okay. I don't need to worry about it. I'm healthy. I feel fine. And so I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was normal. I thought I was happy. I wasn't happy. I was miserable for many years. And so it kind of just kept escalating. My weight, I was miserable. I felt like something was missing. I went back to college in my late 30s, mid to late 30s, and I thought maybe that's what I needed. Maybe that was what I was missing. That was a big part of it, but it wasn't everything. And it wasn't until it was about right after Thanksgiving in 2010. We had just moved to Georgia, actually, and we were living in the Atlanta area. And I frequented Starbucks at the time, and so I was big on going and having my coffee after work and whatnot. And so I was there, and I had this episode, and I didn't know at the time what it was. I had suspected, but I had gotten sharp pains that shot up my arm, through my back, around to my neck, and right back down again. And I didn't know, and it literally had me on the floor. And I was going to go to the emergency room. I did not. I decided to just leave and go home. And so I did that. And I went home, and, it subsided after a while, the pain. And just got up the next day, and I thought, I went through my routine, making my coffee, making my bacon and eggs for breakfast for me and my family. And I stopped and I thought, what am I doing? You know, and it suddenly it just flooded to me, and something came to me and just said, you need to stop. You just had a heart attack. And I don't know why that came to me like that, and that at that moment and that quickly, but it did. And that's when I realized that that was likely that I had a minor heart attack. And it was enough that it scared me at that moment. And I stopped what I was doing. And I could not proceed with making this food. And I told my family, I said, I can't do this. And so I kind of retreated to my bedroom and kind of just, I had to be by myself at that point. And I just kept to myself for the rest of the day and kind of, thought a lot about what had happened and what I was going to do. And do I need to take this seriously? And I knew I did. And so I decided, that's it. I'm done. I need to make a change. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I can't do this anymore. And so I decided at that very moment that I was going to make the change, and I didn't know how, but I was going to finally lose this weight. And there were other things that I needed to take care of in my life as well. And I thought, starting January 1st, I'm going to make a multifaceted resolution, and darn it, I'm going to keep every one of them, especially this one, because this was the big one, because I was tired of the yo-yo dieting. I tried every fad diet out there. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. I lost weight, I gained it back double, and I thought, I can't keep going through this. I couldn't climb stairs. I was out of breath crossing the room. My joints ached. I had arthritis in my knee. And I thought, I'm a ticking time bomb. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here if I don't do something. And so that's what happened. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I decided to enjoy the rest of December. And I did at that point through Christmas. And then come January 1st, darn it, I was right on that computer and I was researching and I was picking brains and of different experts out there and just trying to find as much information as I could absorb. And I watched the very first movie I watched, a documentary, was Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. That really got to me. It teared me up. It really got to me. But when I saw Forks Over Knives, that was it. I was done. And that's when I knew. And I said, okay, we're going to continue this. And we're not looking back. And so I just started researching and I started trying different things. Every time I tried something new, I got better results. So it was baby steps. It was a bunch of baby steps. But I had no support of my family. I had no support of my friends. Nobody thought I could do it because I'd failed so many times. They thought I was crazy when I went all organic. Then they thought I was crazy when I gave up pork and beef, and they said, you're just losing weight because you're eating less or you're doing this. I'm like, there's a bunch of different things that I'm doing that are causing me to lose this weight. Who cares? I'm losing this weight and I'm feeling better at the same time. And when I first lost that first 20 pounds, that's when I could see the results, and that's when it really hit me. But when I got my whole body into one leg of my pants, that blew my mind. I was like, what? How did I ever allow myself to get that big? I mean, I literally cried. I sobbed. I'm like, there's no way. There's just no way I was that big. And I still look back at these pictures and I thought, oh my God. And then I thought, why did it take me so long to figure this out? You know, here I am now in my 40s and, going through this change that women go through, and now everything, you hear it all over. Oh, women over 40 cannot lose weight, and their hormones are all messed up, and it's not true. And I totally debunked that theory. And I thought, well, apparently they can if they know what to do. And so I figured it out, and I still don't know what came over me, how this all came to me. It just did. And I was actually back in 2000, right after my last child was born. I was scheduled for gastric bypass surgery. I was 5 minutes from the knife and they canceled. I was prepped and everything on the table and they canceled. They said I was too high risk. And that literally, that sent me into a spiral, of more weight gain at that point. And I, for a while there, between that point and when I had that minor heart attack, I really didn't care anymore. You know, I was done with trying, and doing whatever it took to lose the weight and keep it off. I just thought, well, if it happens, it happens. I don't care anymore. And I kind of lost all faith because I felt I felt abandoned by the surgeon. You know, I felt like it was a horrible thing for them to do to me, to put me through all those tests and everything that I passed with flying colors. But when I got on the table, they said, no, you're too high risk. And we're worried you're going to die on the table. And now I look back at that and go, thank God I didn't do that, because I didn't need it. I actually, who knows what would have happened if I had gotten that surgery. Maybe I would have gained it all back. Maybe I wouldn't have survived. I don't know. And so now I look at it as a blessing that it wasn't meant to happen. And I was meant to figure it out myself. And I've now kept it off for 5 years. And I feel better than I did in my 20s. I ran my first 6K in 2016. I've never run in my life before. Shortly after that, I did a 10-mile hike, which was harder than the 6K, I'll tell you, on rough terrain in the Upper Peninsula. And I did about another 4-mile hike this year, and I've never been able to do that. And I'm doing things now at almost 51 years old that I couldn't do in my 20s. I'm doing more than my kids who are in their 20s. So yeah, so it's been quite a journey for me, Jason, and I feel amazing. And I got to share this. I got to share this with as many people I'm trying who will listen.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
that's all outstanding. I'd love to kind of just go back to a couple of things. One of the things you had in your Forks Over Knives article was you talked about, how you were an outcast in school because of your weight and you were teased because of your weight. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit, what that was like? And also I'm just thinking, that's such a transformative time in your life that could potentially set you up for success in a lot of ways, or kind of, set some things in motion that are really hard to undo.
Oh, absolutely. I never was popular. I was very, very shy as a young adolescent. And once I got into like middle school, I don't know, I always had this like bubbly, exuberant personality from that point forward. I was not shy at all. And but I wasn't popular. I was kind of an outcast. And I always considered myself the ugly duckling. I was chubby to overweight, and it was climbing through my adolescence. And once I was in middle school, and I never had any boyfriends. I never went to my prom. I never got asked out to any of the school dances or anything like that. So I felt very alone. I had friends, but my friends were all outcasts also. So we were kind of all in this club, you know, and this clique, I guess you could call it. And, we kind of kept to ourselves, and we didn't seem to care as long as we were together. But deep down, I did care. I wanted to be popular to a degree. I wanted to be accepted by the boys. I wanted the boys to like me. But I got teased a lot, especially by the cheerleaders and the popular kids who used to tease me all the time for my weight. And, and then people would say all the time, what's really bothered me, because a lot of my friends would say, you have such a pretty face. And that was like probably the biggest insult to me personally. And they didn't know it. They thought they were just being nice. And yeah, you have a pretty face. But, and then I took it as, yeah, but the rest of me is, because I'm ugly and fat, and you don't think I'm ugly because I have a pretty face, but I do. So it was very hard for me. Once I got into my early 20s, my weight started climbing, and it wasn't that I didn't have boyfriends. It's like more that boys that kind of only had one thing on their mind, didn't, love me for who I was. And so I really had nothing serious until I had met my husband at that time. And he was like the very first man who had taken notice of me. And again, I had lost like 50 pounds before I met him. And he was like the very first person. But when I was in high school, I really had nobody. I mean, all the kids teased me, and I felt very alone and excluded from pretty much everything. I never went to any of the school events. And so I really had no idea what any of that was like. And when I had friends later in life talk about those experiences and I couldn't relate, it kind of really hurt, because now I'm like, well, I can't go back and undo it, you know. I can't go back and do those things. I can't go to my prom. I can't go to my homecoming games. I can't go to these school dances. Or if I did, when I did in middle school, I was standing as a wallflower. I was standing against the wall with girlfriends, and none of the boys wanted anything to do with me, you know. So it was very hurtful. But and what's funny, and if you fast forward like 30 years from high school graduation, and I went to my 30-year class reunion, and they didn't even know who I was. And I will kid you not, like all the popular kids were there. And it was only the popular kids. None of the unpopular kids like I hung out with were there. I was the only one. And I looked good. Like, like this was only like what, a couple years ago. And they all looked really good too. But I was like, wow, and they're like, you're who? And they had to look back on these old pictures and they're like, that's not you. And they're like, no way. And I went to the cheerleader that made fun of me. And I said, do you remember me? You used to make fun of me. And she just looked at me and she said, I am so sorry. I still don't know why I did that. And I cannot even believe how amazing you look. And I said, well, I may not have looked like that then, but I was still me. She didn't say another word.
Wow.
So it was like, that was like the shining moment, my, ugly duckling to, beautiful swan, I guess. I don't know. But I felt like for the first time that I belonged. And I felt like I was get in this flashback moment back to high school with all these popular kids that didn't want anything to do with me, that now were giving me all this attention. And they all want to know my story and what I did. And one of them is a doctor. And he knows Dr. Joel Kahn. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yep. And so they kind of know each other. They're both cardiologists. And so it's kind of funny how I was telling my story and he was kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. And so it was very interesting because a lot of them were very open to it. And a lot of them were kind of like, nah, kind of touchy feely on it. And I'm not sure if I buy this or not. But then they kept looking at me going, but you look so different.
Yeah, the picture is
So,
kind of hard to deny.
yeah, right? Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, looking back, I'm just thinking you had to gain the weight somehow. So looking at your previous life, looking at your previous self, what life was like back then, what are some of the major contributors, on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis that really, was it certain foods? Was it the times that you were eating? Like what do you think really contributed that looking back now you had to maybe undo or you had to really address?
Well, I don't really think that it was so much the types of food I ate because I always thought that when I look back, well, you ate pretty much a good variety. You always had your vegetables. I think it was the combination of foods, but I'll tell you, I am a huge advocate of the plant-based diet now because I look back and everything that I've learned, and I'm still learning, and I'm learning from a lot of these experts out there and all the evidence that's out there and everything that's coming out in across social media and whatnot, and studies that are being conducted in showing that the results of a plant-based diet. And I know, I know it's from the change of the diet. Well, once I tried, every time I tried something new, I got better results. So my greatest though results and the amount of weight that I lost was the greatest in the shortest amount of time once I went vegan. But even once I went vegetarian, it really sped up. But I was vegetarian for like a hot moment. I was
Yeah.
pescatarian probably longer than vegetarian. Once I went vegetarian, I was like, oh, forget it. I might as well just take the leap. It didn't last very long because at that point I was ready. But I knew that it was the fatty foods. I wasn't a big sweet eater. I was a very big, like on chips, things like that, salty things, but not so much like sweets, like baked goods and that. So I think it was more a combination of different things, but too much carb, heavy foods, rices, things like that, potatoes. I even find now that the more whole food based I eat and the more raw I eat, the better results I get and the more energy that I have and the better that I feel. And so I know what I need to avoid now. Whereas back then I thought, well, I got to have all this balance. And I know I have to have it and I still get it. I just, my ratios are different. I've learned how much of this that I need isn't opposed to this. And so I think that it's a big learning curve, and everybody's body is different as far as what affects them more. But as a whole, I really think eliminating the fatty meats and eliminating the dairy and all that really made the biggest um, it really made the greatest um, overall, effect, and it really made me lose the most weight the fastest, and it really, I think that really contributed the most. So, but I did a lot of different things, and so when people ask me how I did it, I got to kind of start at the beginning and go through these phases because it wasn't like, oh, I just jumped right into veganism or I jumped right into eliminating, you know, meat and still had seafood. It wasn't that. I really think organics make a big difference too. I found that the chemicals that they put in it and they spray on the crops and that really do make a difference. The processed foods is a huge one. I find that the more I avoid the processed foods, the better results I get. So it's a trial and error for everybody, I think, but there are certain ground rules, I guess you could say, a certain base that needs to be followed and kind of grown from there, based on the individual. Like a friend of mine, she eats a lot of carb heavy foods. She's Sicilian. So she eats a lot of pastas and things like that. And she's been eating a lot of wheat lately. And I said, you have a wheat belly. And she's super skinny. I've known her since high school. And she actually overcame her cancer when I put her on a plant-based diet, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
And yeah, she pretty much eliminated it and reversed it. And she was in stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and they can't find any of the tumors now. And so she's doing real well, and I'm still on her because she went vegan, she went back. So she's kind of like teetering on that pescatarian, vegetarian level right now. And I'm trying to get her back where I had her before, when we got these great results. And she's still okay, but she's got that wheat belly going on. And that's what I worry about. And I told her, I said, you've really got to eliminate the wheat. And when she eliminates the wheat, it goes down, And so I really think that it's the processed foods and it's the chemicals in our food that have a lot to do with weight gain or preventing us from losing the weight and sustaining it, and our overall well-being, our health. I think that has a lot to do with it as well.
I think that's a great point. And you mentioned, for a lot of your journey, you didn't really have a ton of support or any support. Um, what did you do to kind of overcome that? For maybe somebody who's out there who is hearing this and doesn't have a supportive spouse or doesn't have a supportive community around them, what was it that helped you keep going?
I don't know. There was something inside of me that just wanted it bad, I guess, and I tell people all the time, I said, you gotta want it bad because I tried for over 30 years, yo-yo dieting and nothing stuck until I figured out the secret. And a lot of it is old school stuff, that people don't get. But I didn't. I had no supportive family. Again, my friends, they thought my family, they all, and I'm like the lone vegan in my family. Nobody even eats even somewhat healthy in my family. They're all big meat eaters, meat and potato eaters, and they're all overweight, and everybody is medicated but me. We lost my brother um, in 2014 at 48 years old. That devastated me at the time because I was out of my weight loss at that point and trying to help him. And he was so proud of me, but he could not make that change himself. He just could, his mind could not connect the dots, and his heart, I think, wanted it, but his mind couldn't get there. And he couldn't make that change. And he had a horrible diet, and everything that happened to him happened in the last 5 years of his life. And it just came on very fast and it escalated out of control. And I thought my family would, that moment of my siblings losing their our oldest brother, my parents losing their oldest child, that would click in their minds like, hey, I need to make a change here myself. Maybe I should start eating healthier, at least eating healthier. But no, they didn't. And so I still continued to work on them, but I didn't give up on myself. And I said, I'm not going to give up on myself just because they don't want to make that change. I have to continue doing what I'm doing and be a role model for them. And even though I didn't have that support system, even back then when I was going through this, I still, I wanted it bad. And I think that's where my strength lied, was the fact that when I had that mild heart attack, that scared me. And I looked at my children and I said, I'm not going to be here to watch my children, you know, grow up, and I'll never see any grandchildren that I might ever have, or, you know, all these things flooded my mind, and I didn't want to die. And so I knew that I had to be strong for myself, regardless if anybody was going to be there for me. And so when I started researching back then and started picking the brains of these different experts, I kind of adopted mentors, even without permission. I kind of just picked their brains a lot, and or just followed them and used them as a guide. And I pulled from so many different people. I pulled from so many other different doctors from Forks Over Knives, Dr. Esselstyn, and T. Colin Campbell, and and then I even looked with David Wolf, was a big one for me with superfoods. Um, I followed him quite a lot in the beginning, and to this day, I swear that man's helped me save my life, because I followed him so much on the superfoods, and I did so much of what he taught, and it was just amazing, the results that I would get. And then I also, gosh, there's just so many. I mean, Dr. Barnard, Dr. Furman, there's just so many out there that I just kind of picked from. And then there were even some that were lesser known. Jason Robel, famous celebrity chef in LA. I don't know if you know of him. He's still kind of like that mid-level. He's not like big celebrity level yet, but he's getting there. But he's from Detroit, so it was kind of great because I met him here. And at the same time, I met Dr. Khan and John Sally, and I met him here. And so I met these different people that kind of gave me inspiration to keep going and not to give up. And so that's, I think, was because I didn't have that support system of the loved ones that a lot of people have, and because I couldn't even get my family to follow in my footsteps at least a little bit, as I was going through this journey, even I had to turn to these strangers who were on different levels of expertise that I could pull from and learn from, and that helped guide me even without them even knowing it. And a lot of them do know it now, like Jason and Dr. Khan, and And I've even told John Sally, 'cause I've met him like 4 times now. you know, so I've told a lot of them that they really were instrumental in my weight loss and for my success, because I couldn't have done it without any of them. I couldn't have done it without all the everything that was out there, even though it was not that well known back then. It's grown tremendously, this movement, since 2014, even to now. From what I understand, like 600%, the vegan movement has grown, and people are becoming more aware of it. And so, even back then in 2011, 2012, when I went through this transformation, it was pretty unheard of. And it was hard to do when you had no idea what you were doing and you had no idea how to eat. And you thought, how am I going to go out to eat? There's like nothing here in Michigan. It's like unheard of here. I had to go to LA or somewhere else, like, or Portland, if I want to have, anything plant-based. And then it just started growing. And so I started getting more creative. And I've always had that personality. It's part of my industry, being a creator. And so I was able to go in and think outside the box when I would go out to eat, and not let it stop me if there were places that didn't offer on their menu vegan options, plant-based options. And so I would literally ask the chef to come out, and had the chef at my table and said, can you create something for me? And they would. And so I made it happen because I wanted it bad enough. And I think that's what it took. It took that mindset. It took my mind to catch up and go, it's time. You got to do this. You're not getting any younger. You're over 40 now. You can't walk across the room without being out of breath. Your joints ache, and your feet hurt, and your body just hurts, and you can't stand looking at yourself in the mirror. You're miserable, and so how much longer are you going to do this? And so I had to take action. And again, I think it's just for anybody. You have to want it bad enough, and you have to be your own motivational force. You can't depend on others. If you have others, that's great, but you can't depend on them, because even, I tell people, even if you have people out there who support you, if for whatever reason you lose that person doesn't support you anymore, then what are you going to do if you don't have it within you? You have to have it within you first. You have to be your own motivational force first. And then I think then the others, will either come to you or that'll follow, and so that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm still very passionate about it. I haven't lost that, because I continue to look at myself and say, I'm maintaining it, and I'm not depriving myself. And everybody asks me all the time, what do you eat? Twigs, grass. No, I eat food. What do you eat? I'm a foodie. I create, and I love to cook where I never loved to cook before.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's really a lifestyle change. It's not about diets. And I tell people that all the time. It's not about diets. Diets aren't sustainable. It's a lifestyle change. You have to alter the way you think about food. And then you have to learn how to combine it properly. And so there are different steps, but it goes back to a lot of old school about portion control. And there are a couple things that I did do, and I don't know if I had put this in my Forks Over Knives or not, but I journaled everything in the very beginning. Everything that went in my mouth went into that journal, and that kept me accountable. That was my personal accountability tool. And so when I was trying different things, I would have limits. And once I hit that limit, that was done. And so that kept me accountable and kept me on task. And then I was one who stalked the scale, and I measured myself all the time, but that actually motivated me. Even though I hit plateaus, it motivated me, because then I had to try harder. And when I saw the results and I realized I lost over 100 inches, I was like, oh my gosh, you know. And when I saw the difference in size from my old pants to my new, you know, it was blowing my mind. And so, yeah, that was the one of the big thing that I did was journaling. And then I worked out 5 days a week because I think that also helped me. And it was the diet change, the lifestyle change, not the exercise that helped me lose the weight. That helped sculpt my body better. That helped, um, I guess, just keep me energized and so forth. And it really did help me and sped up my metabolism, and which was always very sluggish, you know. And it's still not even very fast this day, but I find now that I don't even need to, and I still love to exercise, but I don't need to, because I know how to eat right. And if I gain a little back, then I lose it right back again, And so it's a lifestyle, and once you learn it, you don't lose it. It's like riding a bike.
For sure. Yeah, I think, one thing you said in there, which I think is super important, and I've noticed with a lot of people is, for many people who are successful, especially over the long term, you have to kind of have that moment where you make a decision to put yourself first, that regardless of whatever else, like, and it clicks. There's a moment before, there's a moment after, and the after is not like the before, and vice versa. And I hate to make any kind of defining statement, but it's certainly something that is immensely powerful, I think, for a lot of people to make that decision for themselves, regardless of whatever's going to happen. This is what's priority. I'm going to put myself first, and no matter what, no matter where I eat, no matter whose company I'm in, this is what's important. I know that you had high blood pressure, heart disease, prediabetes, constant joint pain, and even some eyesight issues before. So where are you kind of at? Maybe you can kind of talk about where you were at with those things before and contrast that with now.
Oh wow. Well, outside of the heart, um, the minor heart attack moment, I guess you could say that I had. And again, I didn't even know that until, I went to the doctor later, and he's, when did you have a heart attack? And so then it was confirmed, you know, but, um, but yeah, I mean, I really didn't. And again, up until that moment where I felt like, well, I don't have any definitive diagnoses, I'm not medicated yet. I really don't have, I wasn't at a point or at a stage where I was already unhealthy to the moment, to the point where I was medicated and sick. I was pretty much on the verge. And I didn't even know that I had a lot of these things until I had gone after I started this process. When again the doctor asked, when did you have a heart attack? Did you know that you're pretty much on the verge here of diabetes? You know, and because when I had gone for the testing for that surgery, when I was supposed to have the gastric bypass, I passed all the tests, and they said, oh, well, we don't show anything, you're not, you're kind of like teetering on that pre-diabetic, but you're okay still, and they said, we don't see anything wrong here, your blood pressure is pretty stable. Sometimes it goes up and then it will go back down again, so nothing concrete where it stayed at a high level, and it ran in my family. Heart disease ran in my family on my mother's side. My grandmother died young of heart failure. Well, what I call young. I mean, she was 60, 65, and my mother had a triple bypass at 50, you know, and so it runs on my mother's side of the family, and stroke runs on my father's side of the family.
Wow.
And yeah, and so, I knew I was a ticking time bomb, and I knew that even though the doctors were telling me, well, you're kind of still teetering on the edge here, but you're not over the edge yet. I knew that when I had that moment, in 2010, that was it. But when I had gone to the doctor and they had said, and it was right after I had started this process, and they told me, well, you're pretty much pre-diabetic. You're pretty much there. You're actually kind of over the edge here. And so now we got to watch your blood sugar levels. And then I told them what I was doing, and they just looked at me like cross-eyed, like, well, okay, but have you tried this before? And I said, well, not this way. And they asked me what I was doing. I said, I don't know, but I'm going to do it. And they didn't believe me, and they wanted to put me on medication. They wanted to say, well, we're seeing that your blood pressure's up a little bit. I said, check it again. They check it again. It was down a little bit. And so they had to check it a few times, and it would go up and down. They're like, well, it's not stabilizing anywhere, really. I says, well, yeah, well, you're stressing me out, so it's going up. And I said, but I'm eating better, and I'm trying new things, and I want to try it this way. I don't want any medication. And so I told them I refused the medication. And I said, I don't want any medication. I was having a lot of eyesight problems at that time as well in Atlanta. And then I gave the excuse it had to do with the altitude, because I had worn glasses or contacts, since I was young adolescent. But my eyesight, it kind of stabilized for a while there. They kept telling me when I was younger in my 20s, well, you're gonna be blind by the time you're 40 years old. Your eyesight is getting worse by the day. And I got to this point, and I was in Atlanta right before this happened, and my eyesight was getting worse, and I was getting all kinds of infections, and they kept trying different prescriptions for my contacts, and then I had to have reading glasses on top of my contacts, and I'm like, well, then what good are the contacts? If I have to have reading glasses on top of them, this isn't working. You need a better prescription. So nothing was working, and I thought maybe it's the altitude. And as I started changing my diet and going through these motions, and I was still in Georgia for quite a while before I had moved back while I was going through this. And once I eliminated the pork and the beef, and I pretty much got to pescatarian level, and I wasn't even doing dairy at that point. Oh, God bless you.
Thank you.
And I was feeling so much better already, and had lost so much weight already, and my eyesight started getting better. And at first I didn't even really notice it, and until I didn't need my reading glasses anymore. And I'm like, but they didn't change my prescription, and I'm still here in Atlanta, so what's the deal? And I'm like, I don't think it's the altitude. I think it's the diet. And I got to a point where my eyesight improved. And I thought that was crazy, because I went to the eye doctor, and when I came back to Michigan, and they checked my eyes, and they said, well, and this was the same one when I left Michigan. And they're like, but your prescription is better than when you left here. And so they're kind of scratching their head going, how is that possible? How did your eyes improve? Even just a little bit. How did they improve? And I says, well, it was not improved when I was down there, and I thought it was the altitude. But then I changed my diet, and they looked at me and says, no, your diet has nothing to do with your eyes. And I'm like, well, apparently it does. And I said, so maybe it has to do with the thing about the beta carotene and the carrots that everybody's, I said, because I was doing a lot of green smoothies and incorporating a lot of carrots and other sources of beta carotene and different nutrients. And I thought, I don't care what your standard research says or what you've always gone by, or I'm telling you what's happening, and you can see the results. So apparently, if I've not taken any medication or done anything else different, and all else being equal other than my diet, then apparently it's my diet. So I don't need reading glasses. And up until late last year, I just started wearing them again, but only for reading very small fine print. And I still don't need them. And so my eyesight has pretty much stabilized at this point. And I've when I went to the doctor, they're like, well, we don't show any signs. Your blood sugar levels are excellent. When I got a checkup back even in late 2012, summer of 2012. And I had gone to a doctor and she had done all these tests and she's like, I cannot believe your test results. Because I had not even gotten to my goal yet. I had not even lost all the weight yet, And she's like, so I was still kind of, on the heavy end. And she's like, I can't believe your test results. And she goes, what are you doing? She goes, and I told her, and she was a vegan doctor. And she's like, that is amazing because your test results for your age are amazing. And she's like, I can't even believe it. She goes, your blood sugar levels are excellent. And she goes, and they told you were pre-diabetic? So they said, and I said, yeah, they told me I was pre-diabetic, but actually kind of over the edge already at that point. But that was like right after I had started. And she says, well, there is no sign of that. And she goes, and you said you had a heart attack? I said, well, it was minor. I mean, it was enough to put me on the floor, but not in the hospital. And she's like, okay. And they confirmed that. I says, yeah, on a chest x-ray. They asked me when I had a heart attack. And she's like, I don't show any signs of that. And she's like, everything looks good. Everything looks really good. And I was like, oh, well, good, And she's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. And she would ask me, what's your energy level like? And I'm like, through the roof. And, and I'm like, I'm doing things I could never do. And I feel like I'm reversing the aging process. And I said, I don't even know how to explain it at times because it's almost like you got to be in my shoes and you got to feel what I'm feeling to understand when you're my age and you're feeling like you should have felt when you were in your 20s. And now, it's like, what took you so long? You're almost like yelling at your body going, what took you so long? So I did have all these, and the joint pain. I mean, the fact that I was able to run a 6K with no brace on my knee or anything like that, where before if I climbed stairs, not only was I out of breath, but my knee ached. Going down was easier. Going up, I just couldn't. My knee would lock, and I couldn't stand it. And there were many times I had to put a brace on, and I was worried because I offer braces. That's what I do for a living. I fit them now, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to wear one of my own braces when I do the 6K. And I thought, well, I'm gonna try it first, and I was able, and I accomplished it, and I was like, oh my God, I can't even believe I did this. And then I did the 10-mile hike, and that was tough, but I pulled that off too. And I'm like, I would never have been able to do this, not even a portion of this back then. And now, and Dr. saying, well, there's no way your arthritis doesn't just go away. I says, well, apparently it stopped its progression, and it isn't hurting anymore. So I must have done something. I don't know what, and I don't care what you call it. I said, but it's not hurting, and I'm able to do this stuff. So what does that tell you? And so I don't know how to explain a lot of the things that have happened like that, that typically those things, once you have it, they tell you there's no cure for it and it's not going to go away and it's not going to get better, but it did, and to this day, I mean, people always, they wonder, they worry. My family too, like, you can't possibly, I'm Dad, well, you don't eat food. How can you get protein? And my protein levels, my iron levels, everything is good. And they don't understand it still. They don't understand because they think that you have to have it from meat sources. And, and I'm trying to educate them, and it's hard. It's very hard to educate family who are set in their ways and our friends who are set in their ways and help them initiate change until they want it. And so it's a work in progress, I guess you could say. But for those who are able to help family and friends, God bless them, because I'll tell you, I see these. It's almost like an epidemic across a family. One loses them, the weight, and then they all do it.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I wish that was the case for everybody, who goes through this, and more people would follow in others' footsteps. But I think once we get enough of these stories out there and enough people are sharing their results and they're seeing the significant changes and that they're maintaining it, I think that, and as the media begins to familiarize themselves with it more and to promote it more, I think it's really it's on an upwards trend, and it's not going anywhere but up right now. I really see this is it's a tremendous movement, and it's very exciting to see
Absolutely.
improve their lives. So
So what advice do you have for that person on day one who are trying to, make a change, who are trying to make a turnaround? What would you say to that person as they're at the beginning of this journey?
at the very beginning of the journey, you have to pretty much psych yourself out, and you have to journal. At the very beginning, the best advice I could give, because you could say all day long, don't ever give up, don't, you know, once you've gotten to that point where you want it bad enough and you know that it's time and you're going to do it no matter what, and you've pretty much psyched yourself out enough that it's time to make it happen. That's great and all, but you have to have something to keep you accountable, especially if you don't have a support system. So what I tell people is if you do have somebody, latch on to them and make them be your support system, whether they're your workout buddy, whether they're somebody who's going to, um, slap you on the hand if you eat, something you're not supposed to eat, or I don't know, whatever it takes. But find that happy medium, that person or something that's going to help keep you personally accountable and motivated, and then never give up, and get that journal out. I don't care if you're just you know writing haphazardly down on paper and shoving it in your sock drawer. I don't care what you do. Just write it down every day. Write something down, whether it's your starting weight in the morning and then your weight the next day, or inches lost. And I tell people too, that's very important, is don't depend just on the scale. Measure yourself, because that means more. Because if you're working out and you're building muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat, you may not lose, but you'll lose inches, but maybe not pounds. It doesn't mean you're not succeeding. So I tell people, don't just do the one thing. Don't just weigh yourself. And if you stalk the scale, that's fine. Don't listen to people that tell you not to do it. If you're okay with it and it doesn't drive you crazy, then do it. But measure yourself and keep yourself accountable and document it every single day, everything that goes in your mouth. And then set goals, small goals, not big goals. Set small goals, because they're more achievable, and you'll be more likely to keep them if you set the small ones. And then once you reach that goal, then set another one, and then just keep going and take baby steps. Don't try to do everything at once, and don't think that everybody's built the same way and can do the same thing. And if somebody says, well, you can't eat that, but you're okay with eating it, or you also have to look at different health issues. If somebody has health issues and are on medication, there's certain things they can't eat, or certain things that maybe they should eat. So you have to take a lot of these different things into consideration. So everybody's not built by the same mold and by the same premise, but there's a certain base they follow and then move out from there. But as far as what they're doing to keep themselves on track, that's unchangeable. It's all about what's in here, and your mindset and your personal motivational drive. And you have to tell yourself, I'm doing it. Nobody's going to tell me I'm not going to do it. And if somebody is discouraging you, you have to dismiss them. You have to remove the toxic people out of your life, even if they're not permanently removed out of your life, just remove yourself from that situation. Don't let them bring you down. Don't let them discourage you, because I had a lot of that. I had a lot of that through the years, but I had a lot of that while I was going through this transformation of family trying to discourage me. And holidays still to this day are difficult at best. I mean, to see what they're eating, and then the fact that there's nothing there for me, and I had to bring my own food, and but back then, now it's easier. It's easier because I don't care now. I'll just bring my own food. Back then it was heartbreaking, it was heart-wrenching for them not to support me by even meeting me halfway, and make something I can eat, you know, or, not make fun of. If I brought something, then make fun of it, you know. And, I had a sister-in-law that made fun of a lot of what I ate. And so it was very difficult. And so that's what I tell a lot of people too, is that you can't let those kind of people, those toxic people get to you. You can't let it discourage you, because in a lot of cases, they really just don't understand. They really don't understand what it is you're doing and why it's working for you. And maybe something they've tried didn't work for them. And even though you want to educate them, maybe they still just they're not welcoming of it for whatever reason, and that's okay. Maybe they're not ready yet, but you have to keep going. You have to keep pushing forward. If you want it, then you have to go for it and not stop at that point, because once you hit that roadblock, even though you're on that right path, if you take a detour because somebody else tells you this is the way you should go, come on, you want it, there's no turning back at that point, because you're regressing. You're going back to your old ways, and there will be a lot of people that will still try to do it. Even after you lose the weight, they'll still try to do it. They'll try to bring you back to where you were, because they'll think you've changed, and I've had family and friends tell me that you've changed. I said, yeah, I have. You're right, I have.
Yeah,
I
268 pounds
lost,
worth.
I lost the whole person. Yeah, I've
maybe
changed.
maybe two, depending on who you're talking to.
Well, that's true. I
Well,
lost two women or one very overweight man.
so if you could go back in time and have a conversation with your former self and give that former self some words of encouragement or some advice, what would you say to that person?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? I guess I would say to my old self, even though I have no regrets, because I believe everything happens for a reason and it happens in its own time, I would probably still say, what took you so long?
Hmm.
What took you so long to finally wake up? Um, and I really don't know what else I would say at that point, other than that, because again, I know that maybe it wasn't my time back then, but if I had done things even a little differently, I could have had tremendously different outcome, you know, good or bad. Um, I may not be where I am today, and I really don't know. I mean, just, I guess I'd say to my former self, if I had to reverse time and go back to that time of before I knew better, I probably would have told myself, you need to start eating better and just making better choices, and not listening to what everybody else tells you, and not following the pack and not following what everybody else is doing, and be who you should be, because I think a lot of that has a lot to do with the outcome that many people end up, receiving. That outcome that they get is in a lot of cases because of whether it's peer pressure in adolescence, or you know, a certain level of, well, if I don't, sense of belonging, you know, if I don't do it this way, they won't like me, or if I don't do it this way, I won't belong, or if I don't do it this way, I won't succeed in life, you know, and you see that a lot in the workforce also when you go to and you work with a bunch of different people in an office setting, for instance, and people get together and they might do a potluck or they do a birthday party for one of the workers, and everybody brings a dessert or everybody brings something for a holiday, you know, potluck or whatnot, and then you feel obligated. Well, I got to bring something that everybody will eat, something that everybody will like, so I should make, you know, a sweet. I should make a baked good because everybody loves cookies or cake or, you know, and or you're making some fattening dish or something meat based that you because you assume that that's what everybody's going to want. And so then everybody kind of follows the same lead. And before you know it, all you have is just a bunch of toxic food that's doing nobody any good. And everybody's getting, you know, sick and gaining weight from this. And I think that I would probably, you know, people got to look back on that too and say, well, I can't do it just because everybody else is doing it that way. I got to be my own self. And if I'm not comfortable with that, why wouldn't I bring something that maybe I'm more comfortable with? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that people are too prone to follow what others are doing just to fit in and satisfy them and feel like they belong, and because it's how it's always been done, you know, maybe it's tradition. You know, you find a lot of cultural traditions or holiday traditions, and people just keep doing that kind of thing. And you know, and I probably tell my former self also, there's no such thing as everything in moderation.
Right.
And I hate that. I really hate that phrase now
Yeah.
because when I hear it all the time, everything in moderation. I'm from a Polish family, so my family also does punchkis on Fat Tuesday, you know, right before Lent. And so they, you know, they all go get their punchkis from Hamtramck in Michigan. It was famous for the punchkis. And if you're not familiar with a punchki, Jason, it's a big jelly donut that has about 2,000 calories in it. And, and I look at that, I'm like, oh my God, I used to sit down and eat like 3 or 4 of these in a sitting. And then I add up the calories and I'm like, what would I? And I'm like, why would I even consider doing that? And I look at my ox and I look at my children and say, do you not realize how many calories are in that? And then these people that tell me, or family that tell me, but everything in moderation, it's only once a year. Once a year, you eat that jelly donut that has 2,000 calories in it. That's more than your whole daily worth of calories. And, but it's okay because it's only once a year. You know, then next week you're going to, oh, but it's only once a year and it's going to spiral out of control. So you have to have limits for yourself. And so that's probably out of more than anything, lesson learned that I know now that I didn't know then was there's no such thing as everything in moderation. Never give up. Don't follow the leads of others. Do what you know in your heart is right and follow what feels good to you. But also look and make sure that what you're doing is the right thing for you, you know, that is benefiting you. If it's not benefiting you positively, then and you're getting good results from it, then it's not a good thing, you know. And so, but again, I still don't have any of those regrets because I know that the timing on everything was just where it needed to be. You know, outside of maybe a few little factors where I might have been able to speed it up a little bit. I could have started it sooner, you know, and because I made poor decisions and everybody does, but that's okay because you learn from that. You know, you make a poor decision, you don't do it again, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think we all learn from that and we get wiser as we get older. But now I look back and everybody goes, well, yeah, but now you're like 50 years old, so you don't got much time left. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm only halfway through my life. I got a lot of time.
No doubt. Well, what's the best way for people to connect with you if they're hearing your story and it's resonating with them? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Oh gosh, well, I have a Facebook page that I've had for a little while now, and it's gaining some momentum and popularity out there, and it's called Losing with Organic Vegan Eats. It acronym LOVE, and I formed that for the sole purpose of sharing my story and helping to inspire and motivate others to also love themselves enough, because again, it was all about that love, and that's why I chose that acronym, but wanted people to know that there is a set, I don't want to say set, that's not even the proper term. There is a way to do this right, and there's a way to do it wrong, and to get the best results. And so I go on there and I post, what I eat on a daily basis. I even put recipes on there occasionally. I'm there to answer any questions. Whatever I can do to motivate others, I want to do that and to inspire them to try to take that, whether they're teetering on the edge going, well, I'm not sure if I don't think I could go vegan, or I'm not sure I could even go vegetarian, or if I talk to you, are you going to make me go vegan? And a lot of I tell them, let's take baby steps. I'm always going to promote it, because I'm telling you, there is no lifestyle that gives you sustainable results that not only allow you to lose a tremendous amount of weight, but overhaul your health at the same time than the plant-based diet, or better yet, lifestyle, because it's beyond what you consume. It's a whole lifestyle. It's everything that you do in your life a lot of it is about the chemicals, avoiding chemicals in the foods and the things that we use, even body creams, makeup, things like that. Um, there's a whole gamut of things that I believe that helped me reach this goal than what I just put in my mouth. And so I try to inspire people on that also, and teach them that, it really is, it's like a joint venture, you know, with your whole self. And so you have to look at everything around you, environmental, everything that you're bringing into you has to change. And so it's not just, oh, well, I have to just eat more vegetables. That's great, but that's not all, And so I think a lot of it, again, has to do with organics, has to do with the chemicals, the processed foods, the things that we put on our skin, the things that we absorb into and inhale into our bodies. And so it's a lot of different things. And we got to do the best job that we can do to make those changes to benefit us. And once we do, and we start seeing those beneficial changes and start feeling the way that we do. And I tell people, I said, when I watch when they eat certain things, and I go, you know what? They'll say, oh, but it tastes so good. I'll say, nothing tastes as good as healthy feels. Nothing. I don't care how good that beef burger tastes to you, loaded with all that cheese and that bacon and everything that you put on it. It's not as good as you will feel when you are truly healthy and you're eating something that is healthy for you that tastes better than that. And if you let me show you, I can do it. Because I love to cook, and everybody knows that too. And so when I put my recipes on this page, I want to share that as well, and teach people how to cook and how to recreate different things to make their food as beautiful and enticing and delicious as possible, and not feel like they're depriving themselves, because society is going to tell you, well, if you go vegan, you're going to be deprived. Not so, because if you look at any of my things, and cheesecakes I have created and different things, all plant-based, and some of these things people can't believe, and then they taste it and they're like, there ain't no way. There is no way that is not, that does not have dairy cheese in it, or that does not have meat in it. And even family members, even though that they haven't made the connection fully yet, they still understand some of it. And so that's my goal. And that's what I want to do, is inspire others so that they understand that it goes beyond just, oh, well, I have to go plant-based because it's going to be better for my health, but I'm going to eat boring food now. No, let's take the full leap, and instead of, trying to jump over the canyon and falling in, let's jump over the canyon and decide that we can do this, and we can make it everything we want to make it. And we can make it delicious, and we can make it fulfilling, and we can make it sustainable, and we can make it attractive, and we can make it, healthy. And so then when people see that and they go, well, there's no reason for me not to, because it tastes good, it looks good, you feel good. So if you have all that, then and nothing's missing, then what are you waiting for? And so that's what I want to do. So Losing with Organic Vegan Eats is my Facebook page. I'm trying to make a business of it. More than anything, I just want to inspire others and get my story out there. And so that's, I think, what I'm mostly wanting to do. And that's why we're here today, so we can get this story out and help others take that leap and not fear making change in their life, because when they see what happens, they're never going to regret it. They're never going to regret it. Well, too. So.
Yeah, it's all great. I'll make sure and include a link to all of that and link all that up. Karen, thanks so much for the time. Congratulations, obviously, on everything you've done. And I look forward to catching up with you more in the future and seeing what you're up to. And thanks again for sharing your story.
Oh, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. And thank you for interviewing me today.
Awesome. Well, have a great night, and thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.